Don't drink the wine. The chilling text from an unknown number hit me like a blow as I adjusted my tie in the bedroom mirror. Tonight was supposed to be perfect, our 20th wedding anniversary dinner at home, where Victoria had promised to cook my favorite meal and open that special bottle of wine she'd been saving. The cryptic warning promised danger just as I was about to celebrate the woman I built my entire life around. As I stared at my phone trying to make sense of the message, I heard Victoria calling from downstairs. You won't believe what happened next. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. My hands trembled as I held the credit card statement. The signature looked like mine, but the pen marks wavered where someone had tried too hard to copy my distinctive flourish. $15,000 charged to a jewelry store in Manhattan. Dated yesterday. I'd never made this purchase. The kitchen door creaked behind me. Victoria walked in, diamond earrings catching the morning light, her silk robe flowing as she moved with the grace that had first captured my heart in college. She froze when she saw me at the breakfast table. "Robert, what are you doing with those papers so early?" I lifted the statement higher, my voice steadier than I felt. "This charge at Tiffany's. Did you make this purchase?" Her face went pale. She stepped forward, reaching for the paper with manicured fingers that suddenly seemed calculating rather than elegant. "Darling, it's not what you think. I just wanted to surprise you." I pulled the statement back, standing up so quickly my chair scraped against the marble floor. "A $15,000 surprise? Victoria, we agreed on a budget for anniversary gifts. Listen to me." Her voice cracked, but something in her tone felt rehearsed. "I've been planning something special for months. That purchase was for both of us, for our future." "Our future?" I stared at the woman I'd married, the successful attorney who'd helped me build our law practice from nothing. "What kind of future requires hiding purchases from your husband?" Victoria's composure began to crack. She gripped the granite countertop, her knuckles white against the dark stone. "It's not hiding, Robert. It's strategic planning. You'll understand everything tonight at dinner." Strategic planning. The phrase felt wrong in my mouth. "Victoria, you forged my signature on this credit card application." "Look at this. It's not even in your name." Her eyes flashed with something I'd never seen before. Something dangerous. "Forged? Really, Robert? After everything we've built together, everything I've sacrificed for this marriage, you think I'm some kind of criminal?" My chest tightened. Victoria had always been ambitious, driven, sometimes ruthless in court. But I'd never imagined that calculated precision could be turned against me. "Then explain this. Explain why my signature is on a card I never applied for." "Your signature is on everything, darling." Her voice turned cold, professional, like she was addressing a hostile witness. "The house, the practice, the investments. We're partners, remember? What's mine is yours. What's yours is mine." I walked to the window overlooking our manicured garden, the one Victoria had insisted we landscape to match the neighbors' expectations. Everything in our life was about appearances, about maintaining the image of the successful power couple. "Partnership doesn't mean forgery, Victoria." "Forgery?" She laughed, but it sounded brittle. "You really think this is about one credit card? You really have no idea what's been happening, do you?" Something in her tone made my stomach drop. The way she said it, like she'd been operating in shadows I couldn't see. "What do you mean?" She turned away, walking toward the living room with that same measured pace she used in courtroom cross-examinations. "Forget it, Robert. Just forget everything. Tonight is our anniversary. Let's focus on celebrating what we have." I followed her, still clutching the credit card statement. "Victoria, what did you mean? What don't I know?" She was gathering her briefcase now, her phone charger from the coffee table, a silver pen from the end table. Moving with the jerky efficiency of someone preparing for battle. "You want answers?" She spun around, eyes blazing with barely controlled fury. "Fine. This isn't the first time, Robert. It's not even close. And honestly, I'm not sorry. The room tilted. My legs felt weak. What are you saying? I'm saying you never understood what it takes to maintain our lifestyle. While you've been content with our modest law practice income, I've been ensuring we stay competitive in our social circle. The country club membership, the house in the Hamptons, the European vacations, none of that happens on what we make from divorce cases and contract disputes. She zipped her briefcase shut with violent force. I'm done trying to explain myself to someone who can't see the bigger picture. How many times? My voice came out as a whisper. Victoria paused at the front door, her hand on the brass handle that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She looked back at me with something that might have been pity. More than you want to know, Robert. Way more. The door slammed behind her. Through the bay window, I watched her stride to her Mercedes, heels clicking on the cobblestone driveway. The engine roared to life, and she was gone, leaving me alone in our perfectly decorated living room with the credit card statement that had started it all. I stood there for a long moment, processing what had just happened. 20 years of marriage, and I'd never suspected that the woman I loved was systematically deceiving me. The anniversary dinner reservations were for tonight at 7. Part of me wanted to cancel everything, but another part, the part that had fallen in love with Victoria's fierce intelligence, needed to understand the full scope of what she'd done. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Don't trust anything she serves you tonight. The wine will be the least of your problems. I spent the morning in my home office, surrounding myself with financial documents I'd never thought to examine closely. Bank statements, credit reports, investment portfolios, all the paperwork that Victoria had always handled with her characteristic efficiency. I'm better with numbers, darling, she'd always said. Let me manage our finances so you can focus on building the practice. Now I understood why she'd been so eager to control our financial life. The first anomaly appeared in our joint checking account. Regular transfers of $5,000 every month to an account I didn't recognize. When I called the bank, they confirmed it was a business account under Victoria's name, Chamberlain Strategic Consulting. I had never heard of it. The second discovery was worse. A home equity line of credit for $200,000 opened 6 months ago. My signature was on all the documents, but I had no memory of signing them. The money had been withdrawn in chunks over the past few months, transferred to various accounts that all seemed to lead back to Victoria's consulting business. By noon, I'd uncovered a web of financial deception that made the $15,000 credit card charge look like petty cash. Victoria had been using our joint assets to fund what appeared to be a completely separate business venture, one she'd never mentioned to me. I called my old law school roommate, Marcus Chen, who now worked as a forensic accountant for the FBI. We'd stayed in touch over the years, meeting quarterly for drinks and war stories about our respective careers. Robert. Marcus sounded surprised. It's been months since your last call. What's going on? I need a professional opinion about some financial documents. Hypothetically speaking, if someone discovered their spouse had been forging signatures and moving money without authorization, Marcus's tone shifted immediately. This isn't hypothetical, is it? Robert, what has Victoria done? We met at a coffee shop in downtown Manhattan, away from our usual haunts where Victoria might have contacts. Marcus examined the documents I'd gathered, his expression growing more serious with each page. This is systematic financial fraud, he said quietly, setting down a bank statement. Look at this pattern. The transfers always happen right after your biggest case settlements, when the account balances are highest. She's been skimming your success for months, maybe years. How much are we talking about? Marcus did quick calculations on his phone. Based on what you've shown me, at least $400,000 over the past 18 months. But Robert, this is just what you found so far. If she's been doing this systematically... My coffee grew cold as the magnitude hit me. She's been planning this for years. The consulting business is probably a shell company, Marcus continued, a way to legitimize moving marital assets into accounts she controls exclusively. It's sophisticated white-collar crime. I leaned back in my chair, watching the afternoon crowds of Manhattan rush past the window. Tonight's our anniversary dinner. She's been acting like everything is normal, like we're just going to celebrate 20 years of marriage. Marcus studied me with the same intensity he brought to financial investigations. Robert, people who commit this level of fraud don't just stop. They escalate. If she thinks you're getting close to discovering everything, what are you saying? I'm saying be careful tonight. Document everything. And Robert? He handed me a small recording device. Consider protecting yourself legally. This conversation never happened, but if you need someone to testify about these documents, I never saw them either. The weight of the recording device in my pocket felt like carrying evidence of my marriage's destruction. I drove home, through traffic that seemed heavier than usual, every red light giving me more time to process Marcus's warnings. Back home, I found Victoria's laptop open on her desk in our shared office. She'd always been paranoid about password protection, but today she'd apparently been in a hurry. The screen showed her email inbox, and the first message made my blood freeze. Subject: Final Payment Confirmation Dissolution Services, Victoria. Per our conversation, the remaining balance of $25,000 will be processed upon completion of tonight's delivery. The substance will be undetectable for 48 to 72 hours, giving you the window you need for the arrangements we discussed. Burn this email immediately. D.I. stared at the screen, reading the message 3 times before the implications sank in. Dissolution Services. A substance. Tonight's delivery. My hands shook as I took photos of the email with my phone, then quickly copied the sender's address. The email account belonged to someone named Dmitry Kozlov, and a quick Google search revealed he was a Russian chemist who'd lost his medical license for conducting unauthorized research. The anniversary dinner wasn't a celebration. It was an execution. I heard Victoria's Mercedes in the driveway and quickly closed the laptop, returning it to its exact position. When she walked into the house, I was sitting in the living room with a glass of scotch, trying to look like a husband preparing for a romantic evening rather than a man who just discovered his wife was planning to poison him. "Darling," Victoria's voice was artificially bright. "I hope you're excited about tonight. I've arranged for something very special." She was carrying a wine bottle and an elegant gift bag, the kind of presentation she'd always been meticulous about, the wine that someone had warned me not to drink. "I can't wait," I managed, forcing a smile. 20 years. It seems impossible that so much time has passed. Victoria set the wine on the kitchen counter and moved behind my chair, her hands resting on my shoulders. Her touch, which had once been comforting, now felt predatory. Time has a way of changing people, doesn't it? Sometimes we discover we're capable of things we never imagined. That's certainly true. I covered her hand with mine, noting how cold her fingers were. "I've learned so much about you today." Something in my tone made her pause. "Oh? What kind of things?" "How dedicated you are to our future. How much thought you put into long-term planning." I turned to look at her, studying the face I'd kissed goodnight for 7,000 nights. "How far you're willing to go to get what you want." Victoria's smile never wavered, but her eyes sharpened. "I've always been a planner, Robert. You know that." Tonight is just another example of my attention to detail. She moved to the wine bottle, running her fingers along its elegant neck. This is a 1998 Bordeaux, from the same vintage we had on our honeymoon in France. I thought it would be perfect for tonight. Thoughtful as always. I stood up, moving closer to examine the bottle. "Where did you find such a rare vintage?" "I have my sources." Victoria's hand never left the bottle. "Special occasions require special measures." The double meaning in her words was unmistakable. As she busied herself with dinner preparations, I excused myself to the bathroom and sent a quick text to Marcus. "It's happening tonight." "She has something planned with the wine." "I have evidence." His response came immediately. "Get out now. Call police." But I couldn't run. Not yet. I needed to understand the full scope of Victoria's deception, and more importantly, I needed evidence that would hold up in court. If I fled now, she'd destroy everything and disappear with our stolen assets. Instead, I returned to the kitchen and watched my wife of 20 years prepare what she intended to be my last meal. Victoria had transformed our dining room into a scene from a romantic movie. Candles flickered on the mahogany table, rose petals were scattered around fine china, and soft jazz played from hidden speakers. She'd even worn the black dress I'd bought her for our 15th anniversary, the one she claimed made her feel like the young law student I'd fallen in love with. "You look beautiful," I said. I meant it. Even knowing what I knew, Victoria's elegance was undeniable. She'd always been the kind of woman who commanded attention when she entered a room. "Thank you, darling." She gestured to my chair with theatrical flourish. "Shall we begin our celebration?" The first course was my favorite lobster bisque that Victoria had learned to make during our early years when we couldn't afford restaurant meals. She served it with the same precision she brought to everything, but tonight I noticed how her hands trembled slightly as she ladled the soup. "Nervous?" I asked. "Excited." Victoria sat across from me, her own bowl untouched. "I've been looking forward to this evening for months." "I can tell." I tasted the bisque. It was perfect, just like everything Victoria did. "This is exactly how you made it for our 5th anniversary." "You remember." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I wasn't sure you paid attention to details like that anymore." "I've been paying attention to a lot of details lately." I met her gaze directly. It's amazing what you notice when you really start looking. Victoria's spoon paused halfway to her mouth. "What kind of details?" "Financial patterns, signature inconsistencies, email correspondence." I watched her face carefully. "The kind of details that tell a story." She set down her spoon with deliberate care. "Robert, what are you trying to say?" "I'm saying I found the credit card statements. All of them. The business accounts, the equity line, the consulting company." I leaned back in my chair. "I know about Chamberlain Strategic, Victoria." For a moment, Victoria's mask slipped completely. Her face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, calculation, anger, then back to careful control. When she spoke, her voice was perfectly level. "I see. And what exactly do you think you know?" "I know you've stolen over $400,000 from our joint accounts. I know you've been forging my signature for months. I know you've been planning this evening very carefully." I gestured to the elaborate dinner setting. "The question is, what were you planning to do after I was no longer a problem?" Victoria stood slowly, walking to the sideboard where the wine waited. "You always were too smart for your own good, Robert. It's one of the things I fell in love with. It's also what makes this so difficult." She picked up the bottle with both hands, cradling it like something precious. "This wine really is from our honeymoon vintage. I thought there was poetry in that ending where we began." "Ending?" I stayed seated, but my muscles tensed for movement. "That's an interesting word choice." "Don't be dramatic." Victoria began opening the wine with practiced efficiency. "You make it sound so sinister. I prefer to think of it as transition." The cork came free with a soft pop that sounded unnaturally loud in the suddenly quiet room. Victoria poured 2 glasses, the dark liquid catching the candlelight like liquid garnets. "Transition to what?" "To a new life." Victoria returned to her seat, raising her glass. "To freedom from the limitations of our current situation." I picked up my glass but didn't raise it. "What limitations?" "We have a successful practice, a beautiful home, everything we worked for." "Everything you were content with," Victoria corrected. "I wanted more, Robert. I deserved more." "Do you know what it's like being married to someone with no ambition? Someone satisfied with mediocrity? Our practice generates over $300,000 a year." "Pennies." Victoria's voice turned harsh. "Do you know what Senator Bradley's wife spends on jewelry each month? What Catherine Williams paid for her kitchen renovation? We've been living like middle-class lawyers, while surrounded by real wealth. So you decided to steal from me to fund your lifestyle. I decided to take what should have been mine all along. Victoria's composure cracked further. I'm the one with the political connections. I'm the one who brings in the high-profile clients. I built half of our reputation, but legally, I'm just your wife, your junior partner, your employee. She stood again, pacing behind her chair like a caged predator. Do you know how many opportunities I've turned down over the years? Law firms that wanted to hire me, political positions I could have taken, business ventures I could have pursued, all because I chose to build something with you instead. No one forced you to make those choices, didn't they? Victoria's laugh was bitter. Society, expectations, the assumption that wives support their husbands' ambitions rather than pursuing their own. 20 years of being Mrs. Robert Chamberlain instead of Victoria Chamberlain, attorney and power broker. I finally understood what I was seeing. This wasn't just about money. Victoria had been suffocating in our marriage, trapped by choices she'd made decades ago, resentful of limitations she'd accepted. The theft was just her way of claiming what she felt life owed her. So your solution was to poison me on our anniversary? Victoria froze. What did you say? I found the email from Dmitry Kozlov. Dissolution services. A substance that won't be detectable for 48 to 72 hours. I gestured to the wine glasses. Very sophisticated. Very you. For the first time all evening, Victoria looked genuinely surprised. Then something shifted in her expression, relief, almost. You really did find everything. Most of it. I set down my untouched wine. What I don't understand is the timeline. Why tonight? Why the anniversary? Victoria sat back down, her posture relaxing for the first time since I'd confronted her about the credit card. Because tonight was supposed to be perfect. Our anniversary dinner, your favorite meal, wine from our honeymoon. When they found you tomorrow, it would look like a heart attack. The stress of our recent financial troubles, the pressure of managing the practice alone. And you'd be the grieving widow, inheriting everything. I'd be free to pursue the life I should have had all along. Victoria picked up her wine glass, swirling the contents thoughtfully. The life insurance alone would have given me the capital to start over properly. Life insurance? My blood chilled. How much life insurance? 2 million? Term policy I took out last year when you were worried about our liability exposure from the Morrison case. Victoria smiled almost fondly. You signed the paperwork without even reading it. You trusted me so completely. I thought back to the stack of documents Victoria had brought home from the insurance agent. She'd explained them as routine business protection, and I'd signed everything she put in front of me, just like always. But now you know everything, Victoria continued, so we have a problem. We have a problem. I agreed. The question is, what do we do about it? Victoria studied me across the candlelit table. You could still drink the wine, Robert. It would be peaceful, dignified, better than the alternatives. What alternatives? Well, you can't expect me to just give up and go to prison. Victoria's voice was conversational, like we were discussing vacation plans. I've worked too hard, come too far. If you force me to be creative about this situation... My phone buzzed with an incoming text. Victoria's eyes flicked to it, then back to my face. Go ahead, she said. Check your message, but know that whatever it says, it's not going to change how this evening ends. I glanced at the screen. The message was from the same unknown number that had warned me about the wine. Police are outside. Signal when ready. Marcus had followed through on his promise to protect me. I looked back at Victoria, who was watching me with the calculating expression I'd seen her use with hostile witnesses. Friends of yours? She asked. Insurance, I replied. Victoria nodded slowly. Smart. You always were thorough. She raised her wine glass again. Well then, I suppose we should make a toast. To what? to 20 years of marriage, to the end of pretending, to finally understanding who we really are. Victoria's smile was sad and beautiful and terrifying, to truth. She lifted the glass toward her lips, and I realized with horror that she intended to drink the poisoned wine herself. Victoria, don't. I lunged across the table, knocking over candles and sending china crashing to the floor. My hand closed around her wrist just as the glass touched her lips. Let go, Robert. Her voice was calm, resigned. This is the cleanest ending for both of us. It's not an ending. We can fix this. Get you help, work out the financial problems. I pried the wine glass from her fingers, dark liquid splashing across the white tablecloth. Fix this? Victoria laughed, pulling away from me. You still don't understand. I don't want to be fixed. I want to be free. She stood up, smoothing her black dress with the same composure she'd shown throughout our marriage. The money is already gone, Robert. Moved to accounts in Switzerland, investments in companies you'll never trace. Even if you could recover some of it, the legal fees would bankrupt you. Then why the poison? Why not just disappear? Because disappearing would have made you the victim. This way, you would have been the tragic widower who inherited a clean slate. No debts, no complications, just a fresh start and my life insurance money. Victoria walked to the window, looking out at the police cars that were undoubtedly positioning themselves around our house. Very thoughtful of you, I said, not hiding my bitterness. I did love you, Robert. I want you to know that. 20 years ago, when we were young and ambitious and everything seemed possible, I really did love you. She turned back to me, and for a moment I saw traces of the woman I'd married. But love isn't enough when one person grows and the other stays the same. I didn't stay the same. I built something. We built something together. You built a comfortable mediocrity. I needed more than comfortable. Victoria moved to her purse, retrieving what looked like a cell phone. I needed extraordinary. Is that what you call fraud and attempted murder? Extraordinary. I call it taking control of my own life for the first time in 20 years. Victoria's fingers moved across the phone screen. I'm sending a final transfer now. The last of our joint assets, moving to an account in the Cayman Islands. By the time your police friends finish their paperwork, it will be unreachable. My phone buzzed with another message. Move away from her now. Victoria, put the phone down. Let's talk about this. We are talking. She finished her transaction and slipped the phone back into her purse. We're having the most honest conversation of our entire marriage. Then be honest. Was any of it real? Our life together, the plans we made, the future we talked about? Victoria considered the question seriously. The early years were real. When you were still growing, still hungry for more than what you had. But somewhere along the way, you became satisfied. Content with our small practice, our modest success, our predictable life. She gestured around our elegant dining room. This house, these things, they're beautiful. But they're also a prison. Every dinner party with the same people, every conversation about the same cases, every year that passed exactly like the one before it. So you decided to change the script. I decided to write my own ending. Victoria picked up one of the scattered roses from the floor, twirling it between her fingers. The consulting business was supposed to be temporary, just a way to build capital for something bigger. But then I realized how easy it was, how completely you trusted me. And trust became opportunity. Trust became temptation. Victoria dropped the rose, and temptation became necessity. Do you have any idea how much it costs to maintain the kind of contacts I needed? The political dinners, the charity events, the networking lunches? Real power requires real money, Robert, not the pocket change we made settling divorces. I watched my wife of 20 years stand in the ruins of our anniversary dinner, explaining her betrayal with the same logical precision she brought to legal arguments. Part of me still loved her for that brilliant mind, even as I understood how she used it to destroy us. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now you call your friends outside and have me arrested. I'll be charged with fraud, forgery, attempted murder. The evidence is overwhelming, thanks to your thoroughness." Victoria straightened her dress again, preparing for whatever came next. "I'll probably get 15 to 20 years. You'll get back some of the money, eventually. You'll rebuild the practice, find someone new, have the quiet life you always wanted. And you'll have your extraordinary ending. I'll have my dignity." Victoria met my eyes one last time. "I won't beg forgiveness or claim I was crazy or desperate. I knew exactly what I was doing, and I'd do it again. The only thing I regret is not being bolder sooner." The front door burst open. Marcus entered first, followed by 2 FBI agents and a New York police detective. They moved with practiced efficiency, spreading through our house like they'd done this 1,000 times before. "Mrs. Chamberlain?" The lead detective approached Victoria with professional courtesy. "I'm Detective Sarah Morrison. We have a warrant for your arrest in connection with financial fraud and attempted murder." "Of course you do." Victoria held out her hands for handcuffs with the same grace she'd shown accepting award plaques at Bar Association dinners. "I assume my husband has been very thorough in documenting my crimes. You have the right to remain silent." Detective Morrison began the familiar litany as she secured the handcuffs. I stood in the wreckage of our dining room, watching my wife being arrested on our 20th anniversary. The candles had burned down to stubs, rose petals were scattered across broken china, and the wine that was meant to kill me had stained our white tablecloth like blood. "Robert." Victoria paused at the doorway, flanked by officers. "For what it's worth, you would have died peacefully." "I made sure of that." "Thanks," I said. "That's very considerate." She smiled one last time, the expression both sad and defiant. "Goodbye, darling. I hope you find someone who's content with the life you want to live." Then she was gone, led away to face consequences she'd accepted with more dignity than most people showed accepting awards. Marcus appeared at my elbow, surveying the destruction. "How are you holding up?" "I'm alive. That's more than Victoria planned for me." I picked up the bottle of poisoned wine, examining its elegant label. 20 years of marriage, and I never suspected she was capable of this. People are capable of anything when they feel trapped. Marcus helped me right an overturned chair. "The question is, what are you going to do now?" I looked around our house, the home Victoria and I had filled with the accumulation of 2 decades together. Every piece of furniture told a story. Every photograph captured a moment when we'd been genuinely happy. But underneath all of it had been her growing resentment, her hunger for something I couldn't provide. "I'm going to start over," I said. "Clean slate, new life, everything Victoria wanted, but without the fraud and attempted murder." Marcus smiled grimly. "Think you'll miss her?" I considered the question honestly. "I'll miss who I thought she was, the woman I fell in love with, the partner I built a life with. But that person was gone long before tonight. Maybe she never really existed." Through the window, I watched the police cars disappear into the night, taking Victoria toward a future she'd chosen with the same calculation she'd brought to everything else. Tomorrow, the newspapers would cover the story of the attorney who tried to poison her husband on their anniversary. Society pages would buzz with scandal. Our clients would find new lawyers. But I would be alive to face whatever came next. The courtroom was packed for Victoria's sentencing hearing. Media attention had turned our marriage into a cautionary tale about ambition and betrayal, the kind of story that fascinated people because it could happen to anyone. Victoria sat at the defendant's table in a conservative gray suit, her composure intact even in defeat. She'd pled guilty to all charges rather than put me through the ordeal of testifying against her. Even in destruction, she maintained a certain elegance. Judge Patricia Williams presided with quiet authority, her gray hair and steel-rimmed glasses giving her the appearance of someone who'd seen every kind of human failing and wasn't surprised by any of it. "Mrs. Chamberlain," she said when Victoria's turn came to speak, "would you like to provide a statement before sentencing?" Victoria stood slowly, her voice clear and unwavering. "Your Honor, I'm guilty of everything I've been charged with. I stole from my husband, forged his signature, and attempted to murder him on our anniversary. I did these things knowingly and without remorse." The courtroom stirred. Most defendants tried to minimize their crimes, express regret, beg for mercy. Victoria offered only honesty. "I won't insult this court by claiming temporary insanity or extreme emotional distress. I made calculated decisions over a period of months, and I accept full responsibility for the consequences." Judge Williams studied Victoria with obvious curiosity. "Do you have anything else to say? Any explanation for your actions?" "Only that I refuse to apologize for wanting more than I had. I apologize for the methods I chose, but not for the ambition that drove them." Victoria's gaze found mine in the gallery. "I hope my husband builds a better life than the one we shared." Judge Williams' sentencing was comprehensive and final. "Victoria Chamberlain, you are hereby sentenced to 18 years in federal prison for fraud, forgery, and attempted murder. You are also ordered to provide full restitution to the victim in the amount of $427,000. The gavel came down with a sound like a door closing forever. As they led Victoria away, she looked back at me one final time. "I hope you find someone who's satisfied with ordinary," she said quietly. "I hope you learn that extraordinary doesn't require destroying other people," I replied. Outside the courthouse, Marcus and I walked slowly down the stone steps, the late autumn sun warming our faces. The media attention was finally dying down, and I was looking forward to returning to the anonymity of private legal practice. "Any regrets?" Marcus asked. I considered the question honestly. "About stopping her?" "None." "About the marriage itself?" I paused, watching couples walk past us, holding hands, planning futures together. "I regret that I never saw how trapped she felt. Maybe if I'd understood sooner, we could have found a different ending. Or maybe she would have poisoned you 5 years ago instead of last spring. Maybe." I pulled out my phone, checking messages from clients who still trusted me despite the scandal. "The practice is recovering. People seem to understand that I was the victim, not the accomplice. And personally, I thought about the empty house waiting for me, the dining room where Victoria had tried to kill me now converted into a home office. I'm learning to live alone. It's not as difficult as I expected. You could sell the house. Start completely fresh." I could. I looked back at the courthouse where my wife of 20 years had just been sentenced to spend the next 18 years in prison. "But I think I'll stay. Victoria was wrong about one thing. There's nothing ordinary about a life you build honestly. Even if it's smaller than what she wanted, it's real." Marcus smiled. "Think you'll ever marry again?" "Maybe. Someday. When I meet someone who's looking for the same kind of life I am." I started toward my car, feeling lighter than I had in months. Someone who's satisfied with extraordinary honesty instead of ordinary lies. Behind us, the courthouse stood as a monument to consequences, a place where choices came home to roost. Victoria had made her choices with brilliant calculation, and now she would live with them for the next 18 years. I drove home slowly, taking the long route through Central Park, where Victoria and I used to walk on Sunday mornings. The leaves were turning, painting the city in shades of gold and crimson that reminded me of the wine she tried to poison me with. But instead of death, those colors now represented renewal, the natural cycle of endings that make new beginnings possible. At home, I poured myself a glass of wine, a different vintage, from a different life. I raised it in a solitary toast to the lessons learned, the dangers avoided, and the future that stretched ahead like an unwritten story. "To truth," I said aloud, echoing Victoria's final toast, but meaning something entirely different. To the kind of life that doesn't require destroying others to build. The wine was honest and clean, with no hidden agendas or bitter aftertastes. Just like the life I intended to build from the ruins of my marriage, smaller perhaps than Victoria's grand ambitions, but authentic in ways that money could never buy. 20 years of marriage had ended in betrayal and attempted murder, but I was still here, still breathing, still capable of love and trust and hope, despite everything Victoria had tried to take from me. That, I realized, was the real victory. Not the justice served in the courtroom, but the life that continued beyond it. The life Victoria had tried to end was now mine to right, one honest day at a time. And that was extraordinary enough for me.